Are we gonna?
Welcome to Coach's Corner episode 2 for real.
I
Oh
was
man, we gotta start over.
no.
So, speaking of, how do you feel about your team's performances this week, mans? I know they got some big victories, came out swinging pretty hard, pretty decisive victory.
Don't laugh, dude. Come on now. Not all of us be the CS:GO teams hard crushing everyone every week. I mean, come
No,
on.
no,
Yeah,
no.
how was that
Dude,
last
we
week?
lost like 16-6,
I
bro. Like,
that game was a
You won
really
this
hard
week.
time for me.
yeah, we destroyed him this week. Well, not destroyed him. It was a closer game. I'm glad.
Anyways, back. But this is about me, guys. Shh, this is about me. All right.
True, true.
All about me. Practices and stuff were rough. Like we played a lot of teams that were better than us, or at least like more better practice, I guess we could say. We got crushed in a few practices, and it was one of those things where like we had to keep reminding everyone like, hey, look, we're improving, and the teams that we're playing next week are gold and silver, and the teams we're practicing against are diamond and plat. So like it's one of those things where like while we're getting crushed, we'll probably end up stomping these guys because we're just better, right? And that's ended up what happened. I mean, like practices were going so bad. I put Savage in for a game, and that was not. It was rough. I mean, Savage hadn't been playing a bunch of games, but Savage is still Savage, where he just kind of like tries to hard carry a game, and it's hard carry or int. Those are the only two options. And there was a whole lot of inting. So yeah, no, but I mean, game one was good. Game one was really good. Everything we practiced, everything we talked about, all of that went perfectly. And then game two, I thought we were gonna lose because like we randomly into down mid lane. We got like triple killed for no reason, dropping Herald in a tower that we couldn't have gotten plates off of or anything. Like it was just really bad. So I thought we were gonna lose, and I'm like, oh boy, turned back into a pumpkin. Here we go. But we pulled it out. We were just better players, and it took a little bit longer to end. But when you first game ends in 22 minutes, you can't really do much faster than that because you kind of need Baron. And then yeah, so I mean, it was good. It was nice to get a win. We're 2-3 now, I think, with one forfeit, which is really unfortunate because I really wish we could have played that game as well.
That game definitely would have been a win. Looking at both teams there for sure.
Ranks and stuff, yeah, no, I know, but yeah, no. So I mean, we're 2-3, and then we don't have games now till January, which is weird. But
What are you guys planning on doing for the off season then?
we have bandwidth bowl, and then we have to find another player, because we have
Who's
one
For
of
what role?
AD carrier mid.
And who's leaving?
I don't want to really discuss
That's fine. Yep.
player personal stuff. But one of our players is leaving in one of those three roles, and we have to juggle around positions. So yeah, like I said, I don't want to talk about personal stuff for players.
Yeah,
But
no, the Overwatch team is losing our two supports. Possibly one of them might be staying for an extra semester, but we're losing our team captain, and our season's officially over. So today was actually the playoff brackets, but our A team didn't make it, but our B team did because our B team caught three forfeits. And they only counted 3 weekends, so 6 matches total, and you had to win 4 of them. The three that we lost to was a nail biter to Fresno. We lost to UCLA and then UT Arlington. Um, and our B team though actually did make it in. They beat one team and then they caught three forfeits. But what was weird about the way Tespa did the format, I'm really not a fan of it, was there was a 128 person bracket, but they had a bunch of buys because if you didn't get 4-0, you didn't get in. There was no They had tiebreakers built into game battles. And we were the first team that didn't get 4-0, or we didn't get 4 wins. We were the first team in all three tiebreaker categories. And they didn't let us in the bracket. They said you had to get 4 wins. Everyone else. So there's a bunch of buys first round where we could have been in there, and it really like drove me nuts because like we could have been playing in this tournament. We could have beaten a lot of those teams in this tournament, but instead they were like, well, you didn't get the 4 wins in the past 3 weeks. The top 16 placement before that doesn't matter. The preseason before that bracket doesn't matter. You didn't, in these past 3 weeks, you guys didn't win 3 of your matches, so you don't get in the playoffs.
That
And so
sucks.
it's really kind of ticked me off, and I'm looking for other organizations to go with in the future because of how poorly they've handled everything.
Mm-hmm. Fair.
But
no,
the gold
that's
team did well. We played a show match against Southern Michigan College
yeah.
Wednesday. That
Nice.
went really well.
Which
And
is
then
fun. I kind of want to talk about that later, but
okay,
continue.
no, that was a fun match. And then they played this weekend against Ryerson, and they did really well. They got it to the end of Gibraltar, and that's Ryerson's a team that the A teams played. It was a close match as well. So the B team's been getting a lot better. They've individually playing. We're gonna have to start to pull some people up, so we're excited about that as well.
No, I mean you've got a huge talent pool to pull from as well, which is something that I wish I had. But
We just got lucky, to be honest. Now it's
yeah,
about establishing it and continuing that growth.
yeah. It's where coaches make their money, right? Got to take a gold player and turn him into a diamond. Come on
That's
now, you
that's what we're
got
here for.
this.
I
You gotta
was
do
the
what
gold player when I
you.
started. So
Yeah, and Noah.
what about CS:GO?
um, the scrims and the practices were a yikes leading up to this game.
Which
It wasn't
so I've always
what.
found the worst weeks of practice turn out to be the best games.
Yep.
It's
Well,
it's weird like that. I don't know why.
so the first off, starting off is our one of our main roster players, Achievous. It couldn't be around the entire week for practice or the game because he started a new job that literally interfered with every time that we had scheduled for everything. So he couldn't make it for the first week. We were working it out for next week so we can play. But so that was issue one. Issue two, we go into practices and scrims, and it was just a lot of yelling, miscommunications, people not coordinating well, and we were clearly all hot-headed, not hitting our shots. Weren't playing in our off time enough to show like when to show up to scrims and actually play well. We like show up to scrims and you're like, hey, I haven't played since we played our last game, so this should go well. It's like, yeah, okay, great, thanks. And then nobody was hitting shots. Well, I mean, I was one of them, but I still performed slightly okay. But it was a lot of yelling and yeah, really bad practices. And then we come up to the game and we focused up for the first game was rough. It started to go towards the yelling, but then we fixed it. We turned it back around, and then once we like clutched a few rounds, we got our confidence back. Won the first game. Then the second game came around, and it was our map pick, and we had our confidence and the morale up from the first game, so that helped a lot. And Discord went out in the middle of the second game, and
That
so we
was
started using in-game talk.
we the Discord went out during production and we just lost the casters for like
Yep.
5-10 minutes. And I'm scrambling here. I was trying to reboot it. My roommate actually had his Discord come up like 5 minutes before my Discord worked. I restarted my computer, still didn't work. His in the same house on the same internet, same wired connection, was just working. And I was like,
Mhm.
what's happening? But we ended up getting the casters back in to do the post game show. But yeah, it was kind of Discord was definitely giving us a run for our money.
Yeah, so we actually had four people talking in game. One of our players didn't have in-game talking working in general. Like he couldn't hear anybody talking in game and he couldn't talk in game. So he was playing deaf the entire time basically. We would give call outs and then he wouldn't respond. We're like, "Hey, can you drop us an AK?" And he's like sitting there all silent. We're like, "AK? Hello?" And so we
Is there a
started
text
spamming
chat?
chat. Yeah, we
Okay, yeah.
started spamming team chat like, "Hey, we need you to like do this." And then he decided to go AFK and try to fix his Discord instead of just
So
figuring it out in
I remember the
game.
long pauses. Was that
I
what
was
that
like,
was for?
bruh. Yeah, those were the
Okay.
timeouts were for. The
Yeah.
spam timeouts were just
Yeah.
Discord problems.
Yep.
Yeah.
We dropped
We
out
did
of
take a
casters too.
timeout for the first time ever, a tactical timeout in one of our matches, and that was the first game in Inferno. And after that timeout, we turned it around and brought the game back.
Nice.
So might be something we need to do in the future is
Yeah,
take a breather. Take a
I was
breather.
always laughing at R6 because I know you can't take timeouts in R6.
Yeah, which
But
sucks.
but if one of the players like if four of your teammates die, you just like run into a corner of the map and just like hide and like
Yep.
just you would see like I was spectating our team and you'd see like Moro just like crouching outside behind a
Yep.
rock like
Yeah,
way
I
away
remember
from the house.
casting that.
And he would
Yep.
go like, "What's happening?" And you're like, "Oh, they're just doing a timeout. They're talking about the strats as a team." And I was like, "That's actually pretty big brain. If you know you have like an extra minute or two to kind of do a timeout for
Yep.
the team. The other team still thinks that you're lurking around somewhere, right? Except for the
Mhm.
last couple seconds. So they're all sweating. They're
Typically, until
nervous
they're
and
just like sprinting around outside, and you're just like,
yeah.
"Oh, look, free kills."
So I always thought that was an interesting play from the team. You go, "Oh, we don't actually get official timeouts. Well, we'll make our own."
Yeah.
Overwatch does get some timeouts, but the time in between maps is pretty much what we do, and our maps can be pretty quick.
Yeah. We were supposed to do a strat, and then the strat in the first game, and the strat actually ended up leading to yelling. And so I said, let's just play default, relax, play your own game, and focus up on yourself. Wherever we get picks, we'll play around that. Because obviously, we can't do strats right now. We're not in the mindset to do it. So,
League's got pauses, but you have to have a legitimate reason for it. You can't like pause, pause, pause. All right, everyone, let's talk about this. What's going on? Like that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Which technically, it's like before and stuff. Like we'd have refs at games and stuff, and these CSL games don't have refs, so it's kind of just like an honor system kind of things, or like, hey,
Yeah.
you're not gonna be a scumbag and do this because technically you're not supposed to talk during pauses. Technically, because they're not tactical timeouts, they're technical timeouts essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's the one thing that kind of want to like ask you is like you're saying that like people weren't playing before like in your downtime, like just your free time and stuff, but you weren't playing either. So like, don't you
Nope.
think you gotta start practicing about what you preach and stuff? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm trying to do that with like the league team of like I keep trying to get people like, hey, look, I need you guys to play games. I need you to figure out time to play games, and they're like, well, I mean, okay, and they're like, but I don't get coaching that often. I'm like, okay, I will coach you. I have 2 hours at work. Okay, figure out within those 2 hours. I don't care if you play games for fun afterwards. I don't care. Just figure it out. I got these 2 hours of
Mm-hmm.
work. I can sit in front of the computer and be like, hey, look, this is what we're doing. I'll help you with this. I'll help you with this. But like, if I'm making the time, I need you to make the time as well.
Yes.
Which is,
One of
I
our
mean,
players hasn't touched ranked in probably a year. He just doesn't play ranked games. Um, and like so he was grandmaster like in previous seasons, and he used to play a decent amount. He's got a decent amount of quick play hours from before, but he doesn't touch the game outside of scrims and matches. And he plays fine but that's why we scrim 3 times a week. Is like we scrim like is 6 hours a week, which isn't even that much. But we just like, hey, you have to play at least 6 hours a week in order to like even participate in and like play at the level. And we're starting to look at some of the gold team talent, and I love all the gold team guys and gals, but some of the talent on that team is they're very new to the game. Some of the talent are using like controllers on laptops and stuff like that. So like we're just doing the best with what we can. But it sucks when we have talent that's really good. He's a sophomore as well. Like he's really good at the game, but he's just like I don't find it fun anymore, so I don't play it, which is understandable. But it sucks when it's like, hey, a lot of how far we can go is riding on it, and everybody's back. So please get out there and play the game outside of scrims too.
so how do you deal with that? Because I know how I deal with that. Like how maybe
Um,
we can give Noah some tips here about like trying to get his
Definitely.
players to play solo queue and stuff. Uh,
I've encouraged them. All the rest of the team plays together. I play with the rest of the team all the time. I've offered to play with him, and he just kind of goes like, "Oh, I don't want to make me hate the game." And at that point, I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." He's performing well in scrims, and he's performing really well in games. If it were to be an issue where I would be like, "Hey, you're kind of like costing us stuff," he's never really been the problem before, so I'm okay with it. But there has been people in the past that I know you guys have both worked with as well that were on the Overwatch team that every single fight, every single time, it was consistently the same person's problem, and then we're like, okay, listen, we're gonna need to get some stuff done. We're gonna need to, um, if you just we had pulled him up from the B team, and he was performing well, and he was the best person on that team at the time, but then like they were making the same mistakes, week one as they were like month five. And it's like, okay, like we need to like focus on not making these same mistakes over and over because it's really frustrating when you have 5 people on the same page and then the sixth person is like making the same mistake. Like, okay, we've been working with you, we've been coaching you over this time, but if it's still not sticking, like there's starting to like a rift to form in the team.
I mean, that's normal in pro play too. Like they always add somebody to the roster, and they're just like, "Yeah, we worked with you for an entire season, a year, and you still have not changed, and we need that person to be cohesive with the rest of the team." So I'm sorry.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, they weren't
so
an
yeah,
individually
not,
bad
not
player.
unheard
They
of.
just
Not
weren't on the
unheard of.
same wavelength as the rest of the team.
Right.
So what I've done is all my players have a practice sheet that I need to get back on. This was more of just like having the sheet in general was
We
like
have a sheet.
yeah. So listen. Okay, I promise this will make sense. So we had a practice sheet. Essentially, it's like I'm asking you to play 10 games in the entire week, just 10 games. You can play one a day and then like 2 on weekends. Like just play 10 games. That's all I ask. It can be normal games, but I prefer ranked games, obviously. And just like list what your matchup was, the things you learned from that matchup, or how that matchup went, and then any notes for that. And then you include the replay file. So if I wanted to go back, I could go back and watch that. But in all honesty, like I've maybe checked it twice. This
Sounds like a discussion board.
well, no, it's similar, yes. It's similar,
Shut up.
like, I can check to see if you're doing it, but
Right.
like if you're having issues like in scrims or like in game and stuff, I can go back and be like, hey, look, like you're playing 2 games, or you're not even filling this out. Or if I go back to your match history and I see like 30 normal games and they're all on a Smurf, like this is why you're not performing. It's because you're not doing
You're
things
used to playing at this level, not this
exactly.
level. Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, I've straight up benched players this year for practice and been like, hey, look, like you're not playing the games. I don't care about losing scrims. I don't care about like we all lose scrims. Like who cares?
Yeah.
Yep.
Like
Scrims are about
That's what
learning,
scrims
not
are
wins
for.
losses. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm like, I don't care if we lose scrims. Like you're not playing. And I'll put someone else in. I don't care if I put a silver player in there. I'm not putting you in because the silver player is trying, and I would
Right.
rather lose with people who want to play than win with people who don't want to be there,
Yep.
because it's something that you can build upon. So that's something that's like I learned that I've learned that like in traditional sports when I was like doing track coach with my like in high school and stuff. Like, hey, look, this kid doesn't want to run. He just like when he's in there, he just doesn't try. Like, I'd rather the kid who's like dying coming across the finish line than the kid who's just like just dogging it even if he wins. Like, I'd
Speaking of
rather.
track, sorry, this is I ran track in high school as well,
Yeah.
and we did a four
So
by
did
one
I.
once where one of the guys, it was his turn for the to run, and he wasn't he was just like standing next to the track talking to this girl when the race happened, and so he like tried to run out and like got hit by the other team running. It was an
Oh
absolute
my
train
god.
wreck. But sorry for this. That just came back into my head from like 10 years ago.
That's
No,
crazy.
no. So like, yeah. I mean, you have to like, you have to be playing the games. No, I'm like looking at you for this because this is the one thing that we kind of brought up. We're using as an example. You also have to play the games. Be like, hey, look, guys, I'm trying my hardest out here. Like, I need more. Like, I need more from you guys. And just light a fire under them and try and see like what happens. And it all just depends on how your players react to that. Because some players aren't okay with that. Some players like, well, okay, you're just carrying me, like whatever, no big deal. And then other players are like,
Yeah.
I don't want to put in the work, so I'm having fun doing this, so I'd rather just drop this completely. So you have to like figure out the personalities, which is always like the hardest part of doing any of this coaching stuff is figuring out
Yes.
what you got personality wise,
Yep.
and then how to talk to them. Because back in our generation, Jono, we could like yell at people and they'd get
Yeah.
motivated. Now, if I yell at one of my players, they break down and cry.
Yep. Yep.
My
Yeah, I
players are
have
nice
that.
because I know them on
I
such a
have that.
like I played on this team with five of these members, right? So if I like just go like, hey, get your shit together, like they'll just kind of listen, and I can kind of yell at them because they know at the end of the day. And I don't really do much yelling in my coaching. It's mostly like, hey, here's what you can fix, here's what you should do better. But sometimes I'm just like, hey, why are you're like one specific instance, I'm gonna call him out for it. It was Bry was putting his Torb turret in a god awful position. He was tossing it. It was on Kings Row A. He was tossing it up in the window, so if they came to point, it would shoot at them from like the window. And I was like, that's a really bad spot because it's not getting any of the damage in during the pre-fight. It's not poking any damage in. You're not shooting any shields until they've already like taken a ton of space from us. And he's like, no, it's fine. It's working out. And like I literally benched his Torb and I put him on the other. I think it was the May at the time. I put him on the May and I put Quinning on the Torb because Quinning was like, yeah, that's dumb. What are you doing? And Quinning wanted to was like, they both could play the Torb and they were arguing over who got to play it. And I was like, Bri, last time you put your Torb turret in a bad spot and you argued with me why it's a bad spot. And he had done it twice where he had done it once and the first time was or like, oh, I think it's serious. The second one was like, hey, this is why you should do it differently. And they did it to like meme on me. And I was like, all right, well, I'm benching you and I'm putting Quinning in the play because he can do it right.
Right.
He did what I ask exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, going back on, I know it was a little while back on what we were talking about, but going back on your practice sheets. So actually, after one of the scrims this week that we got completely decimated in because it was just really bad arguing and stuff, I actually told each player that I would give them a list of things that they need to work on as a player. And if you don't want it, then tell me, but I will send it to you and you take it with a grain of salt. You can choose to take it and you can choose to work on that stuff, or you can say, hey, you know what, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about and move on. You don't
One
have
of
to
the
tell me either
biggest
option.
things One of the biggest things for our team was that way. We had a breakdown in scrims a couple weeks ago, and at the end of the scrim, the team was like, "Okay, listen, we need to everybody tells the other, like every person on the team what they think they need to do better, or like the team comes to a consensus." And we sat down, and we're like, "All right, Toby, here's the things that you should work on. Here's the things you're doing well. All right, Alex, here's the things you're doing well. Here's the things you need to work on." And it kind of helped a lot of the players realize if one person tells you like, "Hey, you're doing this wrong," like, "Oh, whatever." But if 3 or 4 people on your team are going, "Hey, I agree with them.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you should do differently," it helps him. And it wasn't that way. It wasn't personal. It wasn't like, "Oh, this player's yelling at me because he thinks I'm bad." It's everyone on the team's like, "We know you're a good player. Here's a mistake that we would like you to fix." And that way, and
Right.
at first everybody was really defensive about it, but then as they realized it went around the circle a couple times, and they're like, "Okay, this is starting to make more sense," and it started to really sink in and helped our team improve a lot.
Yeah, I actually went about it. Here, I'll send you one of them so you guys can see exactly how I did it. But I went against, I like sent them first section as like a player aspect point of view of like playing player to player, and then I sent them a coaching point of view of the same thing as a coaching point of view to them as a player. and then I sent them a part about things they need to work on, and then finally I sent them a what's it called? A like what I think you're actually working well on and things you're good with. And like that's like the little sprinkle on top. It's like, yeah, I know this is a negative message to you. Like you don't have to take it all, but like you're also doing things good. I'm not also just, hey, you know what? You're bad. You're negative, horrible person.
Right.
No, you actually are a good player. You just need to work on these few things, and you can be a great player. That's the
I'm
difference.
when I'm teaching my friends how to play, I'm harder on the ones that I know are like could be better. Like they're like, hey, I
Mm-hmm.
know you're good at
Mm-hmm.
the game. The ones who are like really like my dad. I love my dad, but he's been playing Overwatch and he's really bad because he just doesn't have any fundamentals from any game ever, right?
Right.
So like I'm teaching him the bare fundamentals, but it's my other friends who are even if they're performing better than him, but if they're performing poorly, I'm like, hey, listen, here's what you should fix. Here's why you should fix it. And they're like, why are you always so hard on me? It's like because I know you can be good, and I've seen you have glimpses of being really good at this game, but then sometimes you make really awful decisions. Like, what are you doing? I know you know better than that. He like it was one of them was my old roommate who he actually got me into Overwatch a couple of years ago, and we just both played a ton back then on a console. We were both like silver on console, like bad. But he went off into the Marines, and I just grinded Overwatch the whole time. So sometimes it's hard for him to be like, oh, like I am the subject matter expert. All the time you spent at work or whatever. Like I was just playing this video game and I got good. But it's all like my brother and all my friends who I believe in more are the ones that I push the hardest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, one like going into the game again, the game actually was huge for me because the team didn't have uh, a guy on top that had like 30 some kills and then everybody else with like 15. Like the entire team basically fragged out. We were actually really close on the scoreboard as a team. And that's something I want to see every game. I don't want to have somebody just carrying the game every time. And we had players step up that never stepped up before. Like Doggo popped off. He like went from game 1 and game 2. He actually made a lot of clutch plays, which was huge for us because, rounds will matter. And he stepped up and made a lot of plays. He got 3v1, a 2v1. Those things actually are huge, and I'm glad to see players stepping up, getting better at the game. The only thing that we suck at is telling what somebody should be doing when you're dead. Shut up.
No, so like one thing I want to go back to is Jono. It sounds like you do a lot of coaching by committee of like with your players and getting together and like getting all of their opinions and stuff. And that's something that I absolutely hate is coaching by committee for a league. I mean, so like I guess like Noah's kind of saying a little bit with CS:GO of like you can't coach by committee because everyone's talking, everyone's got their own idea of how things should work, and then they're all
Yep.
like at each other. In league, it's like vastly different because each position is so different from each other. I'll have like someone trying to tell someone how to jungle. I'm like, shut up. Like
He's playing jungle.
I know you do this in the wrong way, but you don't know what you're talking about. I mean that in
Mm-hmm.
the most loving and caring way possible, but shut up. So like there was one of the situations where the assistant coach Pizza, who I'll shout him out here, was working with our top laner Lanubis top lane stuff, and there was like 3 other people in the call, and I'm like, hey, Pizza's never really done a bunch of coaching before. So there's already that kind of pressure and that kind of anxiety. Not to mention the entire team is watching him do a coaching session,
Yeah.
which is you're gonna screw up. Like
Yep.
you're
Mm-hmm.
just gonna screw up. And then when all that everyone's dogging on you, like, oh, you're wrong, and then everyone else is putting their opinion, and then the person getting coached is like, why am I doing this? Like
Yep.
I got a
Yep.
bunch of people yelling at me, and I hate coaching by committee. And like I actually did like when I was at work, I did a coaching session with Jones, and there was 4 other people in the call, and I was like, all right, guys, I love you all. You all are great, but you all need to mute. Like the only
Mm-hmm.
person that needs to be unmuted right now is the person he's playing with. And I need you to only provide relevant information. That's all I need
Yep.
you to do. I,
When Pizza
I
was
need
coaching
everyone
me,
to part. And you guys just, I don't know, just don't talk. Like if that's a big deal, just leave. If you want to watch, it's fine. But just don't say anything. Um,
right? Yeah, that
I
makes
can see
sense.
why the difference in like League you're playing more split. Overwatch is such a we are all six. If we're not on the same page about every single thing that we're doing, like if I don't understand what the Reaper's doing and why he's doing it as he's doing it, I'm not going to give him the matrix he needs or give him the heals that he needs. So yeah, that would really frustrate me for League. But for Overwatch, it's like if all six of us aren't on the same page, if 2 of us are shooting different people, we'll lose the game against some of these opponents that we've been playing. Which is why I let them do a lot of the players are like I know our team captain. He's been grandmaster on every role, and so like I know he understands the role. He's actually been higher ranked on both every role than a lot of the other players have, even on their main role. And so I know like when they're giving the advice to each other. And again, one thing that we have an advantage of is we've played together for 3 years, so we know their tendencies like in and out. as opposed to just being like just adding a new person to the team and then just everybody kind of dogpiling.
Yeah. No, that's just like the one thing I'm struggling. Like I heard you do that and I like cringed a little bit. I'm like, no, no, please no.
Yeah.
No, no.
CS:GO, like you said, the community base for CS:GO is just really bad because there's no role really. I mean, there's roles, there's entry fragging, support, opping, stuff like that, right? But technically, there's not really roles and positions. You just kind of play the game, and when you're with the other person, you can yell at the other person and be like, "Well, you did this, so you're in the wrong." It's like, no, 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 shut up. You're wrong. We're having a discussion. I'll state my piece about what I think should have happened, and then you can state your piece. But I don't know if that's going to work out because if we have this conversation, it's going to be a lot of arguing. So that's the thing I don't like doing committee based either. Also, when Pizza was coaching me, I actually had to have him call me like just a one-on-one call because I couldn't handle people yelling at me to do things at the same time as him. Hey, try to do this, like he was doing he was best at coaching, but I'm also having like three other inputs at the same time. Like, hey, can you just like call me? Like, I don't want these other inputs, please.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's weird. And I mean, so like we talked a tiny bit about getting into coaching. This being Pizza's first year as assistant coaching. I know me, John, I have had long conversations about this in various different times. But like, how did you get started coaching? I know you played for a while, and then
So
I guess Noah go first.
So I know Jono's played the game for how many years, and that's the same thing for me in CS:GO. I have like 4,000 hours in the game total, and so when I was playing the game, I just kind of slowly became that person that kind of knew everything that I was playing. When I was playing with my friends, they didn't know everything about the game, and so they would constantly ask me questions. So I just kind of slowly became that role. I didn't really slot myself in it until this semester. I started the team and then kind of slotted myself in it and then went from there. But I did do a coaching thing last time we had a CS:GO team, and that was just full of people who weren't dedicated to the game, and so it was just kind of showing up and playing the games and saying, "Hey, I'll see you next weekend." That's not the type of team I wanted to coach, so I just stopped coaching when they're not gonna play. That's just how it works. And so I went into this season thinking, you know what, mentality, I'm going to try to keep everyone interested. We're going to keep this going as much as we can. And we're doing well. We're 4-1, but we need to go into the next semester and the next season with a lot more confidence because we do keep all of our players this semester, but next semester following, we might be losing some because of graduation. So,
Yep. For me, I got my start. I started playing Overwatch on console with my roommate. We both had Xboxes. He was a Bastion one trick, so I ended up just like playing Orisa because this was, before roll queue. It was just like he would just stand there on point and die, and we would just lose games, right? So I was like, well, if I'm Orisa, I can slam the shield on in front of him and like pull people into his vision, and then we win a little bit more. We didn't win a lot because again he was playing Bastion, and I was sucking at Orisa. I got a silver border on Xbox, which is level like 600. Played a ton of hours on there. Overwatch tracks your hours a little bit differently. So Overwatch tracks hours based on time, like from the match timer starting to the match timer ending. So if someone says like, "Well, I have 1,000 hours on Zenyatta," it's not like in the game. It's like from like 3, 2, 1, then it starts counting until like the game ends. And so like the hours, like I have like 600 hours on Reinhardt, but that would be actually like 2,000 hours if like it was Steam tracked. And so like I put a ton of hours in on console, and then I came to PC, and I knew I played different things on console as well. But when I came to PC, I couldn't aim because I had never played a PC first-person shooter, or really any PC games in general. I grew up playing like Age of Empires and The Sims, but that's not any kind of it was just like with my brother against the bot, so it was never any kind of like pressure or any good or anything.
And you cheated. Admit you cheated.
Oh, not
I
in Age of
never
Empires.
cheated.
Actually, yeah, I did. I
I
cheated
never
in both of those
cheated.
for sure. Yeah, definitely. What
Got
am I
those
talking
Tonga
about?
trucks and ran everything over.
Oh,
Yeah,
for
come
sure. And then so when I switched over to PC, I started playing tanks because I'm like, oh, I understand the game. Tanks can have impact on the game. I can play Reinhardt without needing to aim. It's pretty easy. Like you can just hold mouse one and people right next to you
Spin.
get hurt, right? Yeah, spin to win. And so I started playing Diva, and then but then I started playing Diva, but I didn't feel like I was getting the value I needed out of it. Switched to Reinhardt. I was controlling the game. I was controlling the space, and I noticed that more people on PC had headsets and were actually like talking and listening in game. So I started just kind of like telling people what to do, just being like, hey, let's do this as a team. Not just like yelling like, oh, you suck, but like, hey, I'm gonna do this here, you should do this afterwards. And people just kind of listen when you do that, especially at the lower ranks that I was in. I was in like silver and gold at the time. So I just started like telling people what to do, and next thing you know, I'm climbing, I'm climbing. I joined the team when I was at 2300 in gold, and the team really, the rest of the team was like diamonds and a couple GMs, and so like way above my pay grade. But they really just kind of like brought me along and like taught me a ton. And then we started like I started. There was one season I gained 1,000 SR by the end of the season, which is two full ranks, and I just was flying. I started that season in gold, or I started that season yeah in gold, and I finished the season in diamond. Completely skipped playing in plat. And like I just kept grinding and grinding, grinding all the way up to like almost to GM, top 500 in open queue, and then from there I started while I was playing on the fairs team. I started coaching my Xbox friends. We played on an Xbox team together in like a gold plat Xbox league, and we started doing that. And so I got into like the teaching them and coaching them how to play the game well, which was a ton of fun. And then when I graduated from Ferris and I couldn't play in the team anymore, I got this job here as esports coordinator, and I started to just take all the experience I had from. I played a ton of. I was in band. I was in traditional sports like wrestling, football, track and field, like all the way through like growing up. So I had that coaching experience, and I kind of just like coalesced it all into when I got this job. I started sitting in on the scrims instead of just playing the scrims, sitting in and doing the coaching stuff that I do now.
Yeah, mine's a little bit more of a weird transition. Um, so I was started streaming and my computer was really bad, like really really bad. I couldn't play and stream at the same time. And so I was doing casting, and I would just like cast random like silver and bronze games. Like whoever wanted to come in and get their game cast, I would do it. And eventually they started like asking like, hey, like what could I have done differently? Like what do you think I could have improved on? Like I was just a silver player. Like I didn't know. Like I had no idea. But I would just say stuff and it was fun. Like and I enjoyed it. And then I started doing like a lot of online coaching sessions again, totally for free, just for fun, just as a friend trying to help people out. All on stream and just get viewers and stuff. And then I met a friend through streaming who is part of Team Viral in the UK, just like a COD team and a few other things. And they wanted a league team. And like, hey, look, like, go, you know, league, go get us a league team. So like for people who don't know, league teams are not like shooter teams, where shooter teams all kind of stay together. They can transfer from team to team. Like, you usually have a team, and then those players just you pick and choose which players you want. You take them, and then that's the team. So I tried to, get in contact with the team called Raise Your Governors, very very British name. Who the captain of the team's name was Governor. So yeah, it was one of those really funny things. But they're like, yeah, don't worry, like we'll get back with you, and they never heard anything. But in that process, like I had followed a bunch of teams on Twitter of like the Division 2 teams, and then randomly I just saw a retweet for this team needs an assistant coach, and I was like, whatever, let's try it. Who knows? Like we'll see. And so I answered the tweet, and one of my now really good buddies like answered me and was like, yeah, sure, like it's unpaid, like you get experience though. This team's like great group of guys. Da, 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 da. So yeah, I worked for them, and within 3 weeks I was their head coach, mainly just because they had like main coach issues and stuff. And um, yeah, no, so I stayed with them for it was like 4 weeks. It was like one tournament or series of tournaments and stuff. And then I got put on a bunch of like random development teams. So like it was the off season, so I was like a bunch of development teams, everything else, and then I got put on the big team Enclave, which then had the governor on it. So it's kind of like we went full circle, and he like remembered everything. So it was really cool. So we're like, hey, dude, hey. So yeah, no, it was really cool. And then obviously that ended, and now I'm here. So that's the short version of the journey. But yeah, no, it was weird. It was just like streaming, and then had absolutely no idea. But then I just watched videos and had talked to other people and got one shot and took it.
A
So
big part of the thing for me too is, um, like Jane, who's in Overwatch community. He was a big like coach who like, he wasn't coaching pro teams at the time. He was just like coaching the community. Well, he just
mhm.
like got a pro coaching job, kind of had this meltdown and like disappeared. Like was like screw it. He would like read all of the negative comments on his YouTube, and he was a big YouTuber, and then take them personally. And it's like, dude, you can't do that. And so like
Hmm.
that put too much pressure on him. He went to go coach a pro team from just like he was working in a library, and he had his degree in like statistics or something, and he was or an engineering degree, and he was like a big raider in Eve. He like ran a whole. He was like a pirating guy for Eve for like 2 years. But then he got this pro coaching and Overwatch job from like no experience before, and the team did poorly. Well, he wasn't even head coach. He was just like assistant coach. But he just got a ton of the blame because he was a big figure that they hired on to do it. But with his absence, I was like, okay, there needs to be like a community style coach. So I started cranking out like YouTube content for that. But I just didn't enjoy it. So like I was like, okay, I was like making this. I was doing like hour-long VOD reviews on my stream. Like every stream, I was like reviewing multiple teams, like whole like tournament plays, like every match and go about every map. And here's what I would do differently, whole teams, and it was a lot of fun. But at some point, I was like, all right, like I'm really tired of this, and like I was finishing up school at the time, and I was like, okay, like I can't really do both of this that well. And then after I was like, when I graduate, I'll get back to doing it. But since I've graduated, I'm like, I have so much free time, and I don't want to do anything because I'm like I don't want to get stressed out and like because school is just like a ton of stuff over your head all the time. I'm like I don't have that now, and it's nice. I do work every weekend, with streaming and stuff. So that kind of like keeps me a little bit strung up, but it is only a part of the day. So and I enjoy it. I enjoy watching. What's nice about streaming is all of the Ferris games, at least I get to watch all the games, and so I'm learning. I'm trying to learn all the games as best as I can, and so I get to watch the CS:GO games, and the CS:GO casters talk about the CS:GO games, and same with League. And, I've been diving into League, and you guys have been helping with that. Um, but it's just been kind of a crazy ride from uh, pretty much just like being a total gold scrub to it being my job now, which is really weird. But I really enjoyed the whole process.
Yeah. Speaking
Tell
of
you
cat,
one thing.
no, go on. No, oh, go ahead,
I
casters.
was just gonna say that coaching is really weird when you're also playing on the team.
Yes.
I'd imagine I couldn't do it because I couldn't separate my own play. Because like I know I'm bad. Like personally, I
Right.
know I'm bad. But like I couldn't separate my own play from like the team play because like I've
Right.
played flex games with the team and they're like looking for me to shot call. I'm like, if I do this, then you guys will expect me to do it during your game. So you guys do this. Like don't
Yep.
don't rely on me
Mm-hmm.
to do
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. I couldn't try and like get five moving parts together at the same time while also thinking about your own play and improvement. I just it's why I respect shot callers so much too. It's just like they have to not only play their role, but they've got to figure out everything else from everybody. So
What's nice about
Yeah.
Overwatch shot callers is like some of the like main tank is mechanically easier than like Widowmaker, right? Like you don't have to worry about as much. So those are the type of people like the main tanks are in the main supports. Main tanks are shot calling and the main supports are ult tracking because they like kind of have more of an awareness of what's going on. So the position's kind of like it's not that way for every main tank player or every pro team, but it's like 99% of the time it just follows like okay, well you just have to stand there as Reinhardt in between fights. You don't really do anything except for just wait for them to run at you. So you can start to tell people what to do and think about the game in those downtimes. I couldn't imagine trying to play League in shot call League team. That just seems like
No.
unbelievable amount of things to think about. No way.
That's why the what's it called? That's why Jalen does it, right? Because he's playing support, so he doesn't have to focus on farming.
so mainly like the way that they do it, I don't want to like I'm not gonna say too much, but like the
Well,
way he
right.
do it is like the jungler kind of like dictates his path and like this is the next objective. So then he just sets up his jungle path so they can be there at the next objective, and then
Hmm.
like Jalen's calling out the next objective. Jones is thinking about how he's gonna get there, and then like Jalen's figuring everything else out. Like top lane's got TP, we got wards here, we got this here.
Hmm.
And support is not like you said, main tank is significantly less mechanical because you're kind of just last hitting minions when you've got your charge or like trying to position in different ways, and then thinking about warding. And when you think about warding, then you also think about what's your next objective because you got to put the wards there. So you're already sort of thinking about it, but yeah, you have to separate. Like that's why you have to play thousands of games because like the individual champion movement and playing the game will be just instinctual, and then you can think about the game.
What would blow me away about League is like, so, there's every champion and they have at minimum like four abilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so in Overwatch, I know every interaction. I know how, when a new character is released, I learn every single thing that that character can do, and I go into a practice range with that character against every other character. How does each interaction work? And so I know specifically, like, if you tell me, like, how does McCree's flashbang work with Reaper, what do you, I know exactly everyone. I couldn't imagine going into a game and not knowing every single thing that it works against. Because like I'm sure you don't expect your players to know how every
Oh no, I
ability
do.
interacts with every really like is that something that
It,
league players know is
so
like every
it's
ability works against.
it's mainly just up against their lane opponent. Like
Okay.
most of them should know like your lane opponent, unless it's like some really weird champion that they like never like Yorick. Like Pizza's gonna hate this when he hears this, but like Yorick is not one of those things that like is played every day. Like you might see one Yorick a month, right?
Hmm.
But if you don't know that matchup, that's okay. Like if
Okay.
you don't know Set versus Yorick, like of course you're not gonna know what that matchup is because you like never played it. But like if you play one matchup, you should think about like, hey, look, this is when he's strong, this is when I'm strong, and then you can also do it based on like all champions are sort of alike in certain ways. Like all of them have like main damage abilities and then like mobility, whether and combos, that kind of stuff. Where like you think about, hey, look, this champion does well against this champion that's sort of like this champion, so I assume that this match would go the same. Or like before it was like on item spikes where like Ezreal's really weak until he gets tier Sheen, and then once he gets Sheen, he becomes more powerful. But you could every champion in the game can bully him until he gets Sheen and tier, and then after that he just like gradually gets stronger, and then you just use your own item spikes to measure up against that to see if you're stronger eventually. Again, very complicated. Welcome to League of
There's a
Legends.
lot of math and there's a lot
Of
of
course,
yeah.
yeah. So I don't want to get too much into it.
No, but that's what
I
makes league so interesting, and that's what makes like good league players watching good league players like
yeah.
you just like, dude, how much you just feel like their brains are in massive because you're just like, yeah, what is happening? So
There's
Mhm.
things that still surprise me. While like I'll watch a pro player, I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, can we slow that down? Quick, I didn't even see that. Like, what's going? I didn't see. How is he reacting to it? Like, what are those? So yeah, no, it's pretty nuts. I love League. League's great.
Yeah, the only main really math control of CS:GO is, I mean, bullet count, but that's just naturally that's your problem, not everyone else's. Whereas economic control is the game's problem and your team's fault. So if you are buying and forcing yourself, and you're at $200, but hey, I got an M4 and full armor and full nades and everything, but your team has Deagles and 3,000 ready to buy next round. Well, you just put your team at a deficit because you can't buy next round, but your team can. So basically, it's a 4v5. It's small things like that make a huge difference, and economic control going into a round being like, hey, I know they're going to be broke. They lost this round and this round. They don't have full loss bonus next round. They're going to be broke. They're going to have pistols. That means we need to stay together and go together, because if we don't, then they're going to pick us off one by one. We're going to give them guns and we have the potential of losing. So it's things like that make a huge difference. And then playing eco rounds where say you don't buy anything, so you'll just have Glock, no armor, and you're looking to get that bomb plant down. That bomb plant gives you $300 across the board. So that is huge money, even if you die. But if you die to SMGs and shotguns, you're giving them a lot of money for dying. So there's like a intern value there. But if you die in CS:GO and you didn't plant the bomb as T side and you survive, or sorry, if you survive the round and you didn't plant the bomb on T side, then you don't get any money going into the next round. But if you do that on CT, then you do get money in the next round. So it's like this small game of attrition when it comes to economic control, and that's the main thing. I mean, aiming is there, yeah, and strategy is there, yeah, but if you don't have economic control, then you basically lose the game.
I mean, I think you made that. So obviously, like I can make it simpler and more complicated. I think you just made that a little bit more complicated. You get $300 for every time you kill someone. You get $300 for every time you plant the bomb. There you go. And then
Yeah,
sometimes you
but
have more
certain guns
money.
give you more money. Certain guns give you more money
Yeah,
than others. Certain
yeah.
things cost certain things. People are like, well, should I buy a diffuse kit? Always buy a diffuse kit over this. It's like, well, I could have bought a molly and stopped the plant, yes, but if you have a diffuse kit, then you can just go defuse the bomb. It's
Yeah. It's sort of like the flowchart of decision making, which is something I
yep.
talk about all the time for League. Of like, if this isn't up, then this is the next step, then this is the next step, and this. It's all of it's
Mm-hmm.
just a linear, like not exactly linear, but like it's just a flowchart of like this is how you do each thing, and the flowchart changes per every game, but it's still like a you do this and then this and then this and then this.
Overwatch
It's
had a specific flowchart meta, which was it was the Bastion meta, where like you would use the Orisa shield first, then you would use the Sigma shield. When the Sigma shield broke, you'd use the Sigma sock. When then the Orisa shield the first would cycle through, the Orisa shield would be back, then the Sigma shield would be back, but he wouldn't have his sock. So then after that, depending on whether or not you had to have his sock, he'd call out, and then Immortality would come out behind a wall. And so it's literally just like, do we have yet this? No, then this, then this, and it was like extremely boring because first of all it's Bastion, so you're just both teams are just staring at each other until like one ability just like fades away, and whoever fades away first loses. But
Yeah,
normally through
another
the games it's more like ultimate tracking, and that's where it becomes more fluid and more enjoyable.
the only thing that's like super irritating in CS:GO is when the other team buys $1,700 worth of items, which is Deagle armor, and you buy 5,750 on your main opper and full M4 4,100. So you're spending like what $1,500 or $15,000 in total for your team, and they're spending maybe 7K, and they still beat you. One shot from a $700 gun can one shot you across the map no matter what range. So it's like there's still a skill factor there, not only the economic control, but also the $700 gun can beat a $4,750 gun. So it's really annoying, but also hit your shot. So yeah.
Okay. So diverting. I know we talked a little bit about casters and games and stuff, but I wanted to bring up the casters for the for fun show match games. So I don't know like what your opinion is, but I really liked listening to people who just like were there for fun and like didn't take it too seriously. And I like the game wasn't super serious, so there were like some crazy like roadhog flanks where you're just like sitting in their base and stuff.
Yeah.
And like I just listened to it. I'm like I'm actually having a lot of fun. I don't know what they're talking about because I don't know a whole lot about Overwatch, but like I like physically hear them having fun, and that it improves the listening quality for me. Like I don't know like what your thought process. I mean I don't
No,
want to talk about what
definitely.
happened at the end of it,
That's
but
the reason why. Yeah, it's true. That ended up getting like 7,000 views on Reddit, but and it got put into 2 different YouTube montages too. Super fun.
uh,
But no, yeah, like the team. I know. So Milk is our team captain that's leaving, and then Adam and Bry are those 3 guys have been on the team since day one 3 years ago, and so they know each other really well. That we laugh all the time. Adam and Bry have a habit of those are the 2 guys I talked about last podcast where I wouldn't play ranked with both of them together because they get each other going and they laugh too much and they joke and they don't take it seriously. But that dynamic is really fun when they get each other going and they're rolling and they're laughing and they just like do the dumb laugh and they can't stop each other. And so that's why I knew they were like, hey, can we do 3 casters? I was like, I don't have any kind of 3 caster set up, but I had actually made the graphic for this podcast, the overlay that I was putting in the YouTube video. And so I already had a 3 Discord person overlay and I was like, okay, like guys, I already have this. Like, let's do it. You know, it's for fun. It's a show
yeah.
match. Why not? And it ended up turning out really well. They were having a blast. They were laughing. Like you said, the show match wasn't that important. The SMC team actually had just put their team together last week, and a lot of those players were like brand new to the game. And so like just to get our team out there and kind of like showcase them. I know they want to be on broadcast, but it's normally always the Crimson team because the
Yeah.
Crimson team is like one of the better teams we have here, and that's why we push them so hard. It's like they're what we're holding up right now. But when the gold team gets a chance to shine, all those players are really appreciated as well. And I had a blast watching. I was laughing behind the mic in the producer's booth,
Yeah.
just like